for the city of Erlanger yet, but that doesn't mean that can't happen too. We also try hard to get, we've been working very closely with job seekers the last couple of years, but we've kind of moved on to really trying to help employers as well. And we've worked specifically with all the employers at CVG. We hosted their job fair for their new website in October. We did a fraud and identity theft luncheon with Cove Federal Credit Union. They sponsored that. Plus, with St. Elizabeth's, we've done a Nailed It event. So we're always open to partnering with employers to help them access people who are looking for jobs. One of the big reasons I wanted to talk with you tonight is I know there's employers here, people that work with employers. Our next big event coming up at the library in terms of workforce is the 2020 New Year, New Career Job Fair that is going to be on January 16th at the Erlanger Library. It's from 1 to 4. We're hoping to have 60 employers. We're cutting it down from 80 that we had last year because we just had way too many parking problems. We just don't have quite that big enough parking lot for that, unless we could get a shuttle. But that would be nice. But anyway, we have coaching available for people coming to that session beginning at 12 o'clock. So if you have friends, family members, people that you know that are looking for jobs and just getting started out, they can come meet with a professional job search starting at 12, a professional job coach, and then they'll help them prep to go into the actual job fair to talk to employers. If you also know an employer who would like to participate, they can contact Josh Longley at the Kentucky Career Center to see about getting an actual table. The nice thing about working with us, our space is free to the employers. The Career Center always looks for partners to sponsor it that provides food for the employers. But that's a big event that's coming up. Last year we had about 300 job seekers attend the event, and we didn't have really great weather, so that's happening. Again, just a quick reminder, everything is on our website. I'll go back to that. So it's there, and you can always call our main number, the 962-4000, if you need help. I don't think you can read this slide very well, but that's my phone number and email up there. I'm just 962-4099 or natalie.rupert@kentonlibrary.org. So that's it. I tried to get it 15 minutes, right? Okay. Any questions? Anybody have? Okay. Well, thanks for having me. Hope that was helpful. Okay.
Thank you, Natalie. I appreciate it. It's amazing how much stuff the Kenton County Library does and provides to our citizens. It's amazing. And thank you for being here. Okay, the next special presentation is the Oath of Office ceremony. Chief Whitaker.
Just get that State Fire Academy through the library. I think we're going to be squared away on that one. I'm not even joking. Tonight, we're going to welcome Frank Santee to our department. Frank started his career in Alexandria as a volunteer several years ago and accepted his first full-time position years ago with the Southern Campbell Fire District. Oddly enough, after I retired Covington, I worked 2 years at Southern Campbell, left Southern Campbell for the great city of Erlanger, and Frank was my replacement at Southern Campbell. I know it wasn't very big shoes to fill, but he did a great job out there. Then he took a position at the Fort Mitchell Fire Department, and that's where we took Frank. So in this age of free agency in the regional fire service, we're very blessed to have a state fire instructor, an experienced paramedic, but more importantly, a good guy. His wife Jessica is here tonight. His daughter Olivia, who has been so good today, is outside. His in-laws are here. So let's welcome Frank before the oath ceremony.
Okay. Next special presentation. Would you like to come to the podium, Mr. Chamberlain? We have our audit report. Everybody has their information in front of them to refer to.
All right, good evening. My name is John Chamberlain. I'm a CPA and partner at Van Gorder, Walker & Company, and I appreciate the opportunity to do the audit for the city of Erlanger this year. You should have three things in front of you from me. There's a copy of the audit report itself, there's a governance letter, and then a slide show. Oh, he's getting that on. Okay. And the copy of the slides, they'll be in front of you guys as well. I want to start by thanking Kara and Matt and your staff. They're always very helpful to us when we're here. They take really good care of us, get us everything we need. We're pretty annoying, and so they do a really good job of taking care of us. The slide show first, the second slide that you have, says that in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly stated. As of June 30th, 2019, this is what we call an unmodified opinion, meaning no modifications are required, and that's the highest opinion that we give. That's what you want as a city. As a part of every audit, we do a review of your internal controls. We look for segregation of duties and making sure that your riskiest assets are protected. And we had no issues with internal controls, so no significant deficiencies or internal weaknesses that we're required to report. And also part of every governmental audit, we do a review of compliance with KRS, your CSRS, contributions, any grants, bond agreements, things like that, and no issues of noncompliance to report as well. This slide summarizes the letter that's in front of you, and I'll let you read your letter on your own time. But we provided that to governance. That's required. It's a required letter required by our profession, direct communication between us and the council, and it just lets us communicate to you if we have any significant accounting problems, if we've made significant adjustments, things like that. We had no unplanned audit adjustments, and that's a good thing. We did make material adjustments to recognize changes in your pension and OPEB, and that is a regularly scheduled adjustment that we make for CARA and for the city. Your 2018 CAFR was submitted to the GFOA last year, and so there's a certificate within your audit that shows that you received the Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting Award, and we would expect this 2019 financial statements to receive the same award. So let's get into some numbers here. This first is your assets and unrestricted cash, and you can see there the green bar is your cash. Dropped off just slightly from last year. It was $10 million last year, right at $9.3 million this year. Down from 2017 at 10.5. Your investments up to 4.4 million was 4.2 in the prior 2 years. A rule of thumb that we like to use is to have about 1 quarter's worth of your operating expenses in cash equivalents available for you to use. 1 quarter's worth would be about $4.7 million. You have about $9.3 million in unrestricted cash and $4.4 million in investments. So you have right at 9 months worth of cash and equivalents on hand. So a good cash position, good strong cash position. The next slide is a debt comparison. The yellow are your current fund liabilities, and those are just slightly more than last year. There's a little orange bar. It's the second bar over. You really can't see it on the slide very well. But it's significantly less than it was last year, and that's amounts due in the current year. That's because you paid off 2 of your bonds, so the amount due in the current year is significantly less than it was last year. You have 1 bond remaining, as well as the compensated absences that you owe your employees. The red is your long-term debt. Again, that consists of the 1 bond and the compensated absences, the long-term portion of that. And then the pink is the net unfunded pension and other post-employment benefit liabilities for your CSRS system. Just slightly more than last year, but not dramatically more. So it's the first year we've seen it where it's not been a big jump, so that's a good thing. This is not debt in the traditional sense. In other words, you won't get a bill for it like you do with your traditional debt, but you pay it back through higher pension costs. And so that's how they're clawing this back. So, you want to encourage you as council to keep in mind that higher pension costs over the next few years is probably one of your bigger, more important budget line items. This is revenues versus expenditures for all of your funds. The green line being your revenues, the red being your expenditures. You had an excess of expenditures over revenues, which is a cute way of saying a net loss, $283,000 loss for the year. Not a dramatic loss. It was about $400,000 last year, so better than last year. Spending was down about $565,000 from 2018. Most of which was a decrease in the police spending for your 911 center. That really saved a lot of money there. The city has a self-imposed target fund balance of about 30% of your expenditures. That would normally amount to about $5.6 million. The city's fund balance is $15.7 million, which is about 84%, almost 85%. So that little triangle shows that's about 85% of your expenditures in fund balance. So much higher than your 30% goal that you have internally here. This is revenues by source. Your total revenues for the year at $18.6 million. Again, about 2% less than last year. Your licenses and permits at $11.4 million. Those were up 6.6%. Taxes at $4.9 million, up 5.6%. Intergovernmental revenue right at $1 million, up about 25%, and that'll fluctuate wildly with grants and things like that. Charges for services is your big mover at $641,000, and that's down significantly from last year, about $1.4 million from last year, because of that's where you had the 911 call center. You're also no longer receiving your bond assessment revenue that you've received over the last few years. That was always $200 and some thousand a year that you received in bond assessments, but then you've paid the bond off, so obviously you no longer receive those revenues. Total expenditures at $18.6 million, almost 3% less than last year, $4.9 million, almost right at $5 million for the police department, again down about 16%. For what we've talked about before. Fire and EMS, about $4.4 million, up about 10%. Capital outlay, very close to last year at $3.4 million. And general government up about 16% at $2.3 million. Public Works, $2.1 million. The audit report itself, the mayor wanted me to read all 80-some pages word for word, but I think we'll just kind of try to... we'll try to maybe hit the highlights here, if you don't mind. This report is in, again, a CAFR format, a consolidated annual financial report. So it's a little longer than a normal audit report is. Has a few other things in it. Pages 1 through 4 is an introductory section. It's a transmittal letter from the city. And just kind of describes some of the things going on in the city. There's some attaboys for the city in there, so that's a good letter. The next few pages are the GFOA certificate, the organizational chart, and the list of principal officers. The independent auditor's report consists of the next couple of pages, and again, that's the unmodified opinion. Pages 15 through 24 is what we call the management's, 22, is what we call the management's discussion and analysis. Again, if anybody here is new to council or relatively new to council, good place to learn about the operation of the city. There's a lot of information in there, and Kara did a fantastic job of putting this together. It's written in relatively layman's terms and explains a lot of the operations, financial operations of the city. And I always stand up here and tell you it's your fiduciary responsibility to understand the city's financial workings as the council. So this is your only homework for tonight from me, and that is to review the management's discussion and analysis. The basic financial statements start on page 23. These are what we call government-wide financial statements. They include your long-term debt and long-term assets. And you see there's your $9.4 million in cash, $4.3 million in investments, and then right at $26 million in capital assets, net of accumulated depreciation. The deferred outflows and inflows of resources, for the most part, are related to your SERS. Those are actuarial numbers that are related to SERS. And so your total assets and deferred outflows of resources at $53 million. Your liabilities include about $1.2 million in current liabilities, about $700,000 in long-term debt, and then $30.7 million in pension and SERS unfunded liabilities. So total liabilities and deferred inflows of resources at $35 million. You take your assets minus your liabilities. That's your net position at $17.6 million. We'll skip over to page 25. That's the balance sheet. It's broken down by funds. This is a current balance sheet, meaning that it doesn't include long-term debt or long-term assets. It is, and again, broken down by funds, and you see the total on the right-hand column for all of your governmental funds. Total assets of $17 million, total liabilities $1.3 million, and fund balance, assets minus liabilities, of $15.7 million. Page 26 is a statement of revenues, expenses, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. That is the income statement for the city, again, broken down by fund. Total revenues of $18.3 million, total expenditures of $18.6 million, excess of expenditures over revenues of $283,000, giving you a net fund balance again of $15.7 million. Next few pages are the internal service fund. The city has an internal service fund for its health and dental, and it's managed as a separate fund and then rolled into the government-wide statements. But these are the particulars of the internal service fund, its net position, its activities, and its cash flows on page 28, 29, and 30. Page 31 through 53 are the notes to the financial statements. And I think I might just let those sit right there and move on. You can read those. Page 55 is the budget to actual schedule for your general fund. You see there, the first column is for your original budget. The second column is any amendments to that budget. The third column over is for your final budget. The fourth column over is your actual revenues and actual expenditures, and then the fifth column over is a variance column. A negative variance means that you've either received less than you budgeted or expended more than you budgeted. You generally don't want a negative in that fifth column. And you see there you received $1.3 million more than you budgeted, so your revenue budgeting is very solid, very conservative, but solid and close. You expended about $318,000 more than your final budget, than your final amended budget, and we did make a management comment concerning that to management. It's only about 1.8% though of your total budget, so it's pretty small comparatively. Page 56 is the budgetary comparison schedule for your other major fund, your capital assets fund, set up the same way with original amendments and final budgets. And you see there that fund is, the actuals are well within the budget on each one of those. Page 57 through 60 are required disclosures for your pension, broken down between hazardous and non-hazardous, and between their pension and the other post-employment benefits. These are 10-year schedules. They get filled out a little more each year, and those are all, again, related to SERS. Page 61 is a budgetary comparison schedule for your minor fund, your police forfeiture fund. And then beginning on page 63 through page 84 are statistical tables. Statistical tables are a required part of a consolidated annual financial report. A lot of data in here about the city, 10-year comparative data, about the city. It's pretty interesting to see how the city's grown in the last 10 years, grown and changed in the last 10 years. Page 83 is the Independent Auditor's Report on Internal Control and Compliance. And again, this is where we opine that you have no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control and no issues of noncompliance to report. That's about as fast as I can get through 84 pages, Mayor. And
You did great.
any questions, anything that I can answer?
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Next on the agenda is comments of those other than council members, so our public comments. All right, Mr. Bill Howard, come on up.
I love audit reports, especially the Reader's Digest version. But several years ago when I was on council, Amy Durham came here at our council meeting and talked about community kindness. She was the director then, and she still is. And I actually bought into the program after I saw 250 kids come downstairs to a church basement and pick up toys that they would not have had if they wouldn't have this program wasn't in existence. So I'm coming here this evening just to speak on behalf of the educators who put this thing together and let you all know that community kindness is now happening. It's an outreach program which started in 2016 by a group of educators in the Erlanger-Ellesmere School District who noticed a need for Christmas presents for the children in their classroom. And also they saw a great need for coats and gloves and hats and for the kids as well. Because some of the kids were coming to school were wearing T-shirts and shorts to school, when it was cold and all that outside. So the purpose of the program is to provide toys and games and, like I said, gloves and hats and all that to the underprivileged children and families in the surrounding areas of Erlanger and Ellesmere who may go without Christmas presents this holiday season. Community kindness throughout the year reaches out to individuals, businesses, local organizations, and churches to donate new and gently used toys, games, children's hats and gloves to be distributed on a special day near the holiday season. There's absolutely no cost to the children and their families to participate in this event. Our date this year is scheduled for December 14th, 2019, from 10 to 2 p.m. in the Undercroft at Erlanger United Methodist Church, where children and their families will have the opportunity to shop for their holidays presents and to make the family Christmas a bit more brighter and merrier. And, I brought a couple of things with me today. This is a new toy. Somebody donated. And it is a new toy. It's brand new. Now, this one here, this is a gently used toy. And I know that there's people in this community, in their closets right now, that have a gently used toy, something like this, that a child can love, that they're not doing now. So I want to let you all know that if you have a new toy, if you have a gently used toy that nobody's using right now, we got drop boxes off at Erlanger United Methodist Church and at Dixie Chili. And if you can pick up a toy or go through your closets and look for something to donate to community kindness, that'd be great. And just drop them off to one of those two locations. The other location is here at the Erlanger City Building, thanks to Sherry and the office staff. We got a box out there for hats and gloves and coats and scarves. But if you want to bring a toy, you can do that too as well. But we're just trying to get as many people to donate to community kindness right now as possible. Let these kids know that we love them, And that's the purpose of this program, to let people know that we love them, and we can share that love through a toy or through a warm coat. So I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, call me, talk to me, call me. That's anyway. Everybody knows my phone number now, so please let me know. Thank you all very much.
Hey, Bill, is there a particular age group that you're looking for toys?
Please.
Is there a particular age group that you're looking for?
Oh, yeah.
In particular?
They're reaching out right now to the 1 to 12-year-olds. We haven't got around to reaching out to the teenagers yet, but we are always reaching out to the person 1 to 12-year-olds. So.
Thank you.
Hey, Bill. I just want to say thank you for everything that you do for our community. You are a true public servant, and I am so happy that you're here with us today.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, I will make my mayor's report pretty quick. So we had a meeting today. We're going to be doing a new event, and it's actually going to be held here in the city of Erlanger. And it's kind of exciting because an event of its kind has not happened yet in our community. So it's going to be a sister city event. It's going to be with the city of Covington, Erlanger, Independence, and Ellesmere. And we're going to do a joint Martin Luther King Jr. celebration in 2020. So it'll be here in council chambers on Monday, January 20th, 2020. It'll be from 6 to 8. There will be a program from 6 to 7, and then a reception from 7 to 8. We are still in the process of organizing this event, but we have individuals from all 4 cities coming together to put on this different event that something like this hasn't taken place. So Mayor Joe Meyer brought this idea up to me and Marty and Chris Schreinersman, and I think it's an awesome idea. So we're very, very honored to host it here in our city. So more information to come on that. And then just one other thing, Dave Hahn and I went down to Louisville the second week of November, and we had an awesome time at the Kentucky Association for Economic Development, their economic forum. So we met with leaders all over Kentucky and heard all kinds of success stories and best practices, and we got all kinds of cool ideas that we're going to take back. So very excited. And thanks, Dave. We had a good time. All right, that is it for my mayor's report. Mr. Kramer, you're up.
It's been a busy month for us, but I have nothing significant to report unless anybody has any questions.
All right, Mr. Gatlin.
I feel similar to Mr. Kramer. It's been a busy month, but not a whole lot to report, and we don't have a lot of legislation on tonight. We have several municipal orders, and we do have a second reading on the text amendment for outdoor seating, taverns, and commercial and business park zones. Be prepared, though. Our January meeting is going to be filled with legislation. We're doing some tweaking to the nuisance code. We've got several ordinances that have come out of task forces, so we'll start the year out with quite a bit of legislation in January. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, Mr. Glenn. Capital projects.
Mayor, council, a lot going on this month. Won't be so brief. Street capital project's kind of the same as last month. We're just wrapping things up. You know, the Wood Chase Summerwood project has come to a conclusion for this construction season. So everything is tidied up, and we'll start again in the spring on those streets. Circleport, that capital project is nearing completion, and it will be completed this construction season. All pavement has been removed and replaced and is open to the traveling public. We're now working on our new bus shelter that the city had purchased quite some years ago, and then the location changed, and now we're using that out there on Circleport, and I think it's going to be a fantastic addition to that project. We are just completing, or going to start this Monday to complete our final fourth quarter street sweeping of the city. Our leaf collection program is coming to an end this Friday, so we have visited every street in Erlanger 4 times, and we will be completing that on Friday. Just a couple little things. We've completed a landscaping project here at the city building out in front, so we had addition of a lot of, a replacement of a lot of dead plant lives and trees, and we completed that here in the last couple weeks. And then the last thing I want to report on is the park master planning. That's ongoing. City staff is meeting with Jim Viox and his staff this week to kind of go over progress and where we're at, and then also that would be on the Rainbow and Silver Lake parks, and then city staff is working on the Misty Creek Park master plan, and we're meeting with representatives from Game Time on December 16th to kind of go over some park equipment and kind of start maybe specifying what our needs are, so that way we're going to try to get some park equipment in that park this budget year, and that'll help us with our completing our master plan of that park here in the next month and a half, something like that. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Very exciting. All right, we have any reports from task force representatives?
Just one, I think Mr. Gatlin mentioned one of the items from the Blight Task Force. One of the pieces that we're looking at is a reimbursable demolition type grant to handle some any blighted properties, and look to add, potentially something into the budget for next year to see if there's going to be any take up on something like that to improve properties. So,
Thank you. Anybody else?
It goes now.
Sure, it can go now.
The attendance today at the Kenton County Alliance meeting at the library was 23, and all Erlanger Ellesmere schools were out today because of a water main break at Arnett, and that comes from Ms. Cooley. She gave us that information. So this is the time of year when grants are awarded. We also brainstormed about what other options were out there to help the students. One of the grants that we received was for $1 million over 5 years. It's called Project Prevent. A psychologist is on the list to hire, make better decisions. Kenton County was among the 16 counties included in the $87 million grant. Kathy Burkhart wrote one of the grants that is for $300,000 a year for 5 years, which is equivalent to $1.5 million. Part of it will be used to hire a psychologist, community realignment, focus on alcohol, drugs, and align resources so that nothing is left out or duplicated, and Covington also gets a portion of that grant money. We had a brainstorming session. What and who are we missing, and or what are we leaving out? Pharmacies, we discussed pharmacies, back to school events, donation baskets, visiting nurses, newborn care packages, daycare, hospice, bathrooms, sports events, etc. We also mentioned keeping the tank bus project that we have going on with signage on the side of the buses. We also received a partnership grant with Ellesmere. Our Kenton County Alliance staff were very busy over the summer filing for these grants. Our next meeting will be January 7th, 2020 at the Erlanger branch of the Public Library at noon, and they do provide food. End of report.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Mrs. Hoffman, do you have any correspondence tonight?
No, ma'am.
All right. Are there any bids, Mrs. Hoffman?
No, ma'am.
All right. Do we have any unfinished business? Any new business?
yes, Mayor, just a couple items. One, I know Mr. Gatlin mentioned some changes to the nuisance code. Are we going to be having that for January, or are we going to be having a committee meeting to discuss what those changes might be in advance of a first reading?
Most of these are things that have been brought to us by code enforcement that we're just sort of tweaking and clarifying language. I wouldn't really say that we certainly can do it at committee meeting. I don't think there's a rush, is there, Dave? So I'll have a draft ordinance for the committee meeting as it relates to nuisance.
Okay. So I'd like to add that to whatever the next committee meeting is, whether it's in December or hold off till January for that. The other thing that I wanted to add to, doesn't have to be this next committee, I don't know if we're going to meet in 2 weeks or not. If we are, and one of the other items that I wanted to add was a discussion around a requirement or adding a requirement for internal external job postings for department heads as we go forward. I know that's something that was brought up. Just want to make sure that we actually have that discussion to make sure to see if that continues to make sense to do going forward for future openings.
Okay. I mean, my assumption is we're going to have a meeting in 2 weeks, but I guess I could be wrong. What do y'all want to do? I mean, we have a meeting if you can't attend. I mean, what's your thoughts? Do you normally have a meeting?
17th.
All right, let's do it. There's enough affirmative. I'm good. Let's go. We'll have those two things on the agenda and any other fun stuff that comes up between now and then. All right, let's go for legislation.
No.
You're not excited?
No. I love to read. Last night in Independence, we had so many modifications to a first reading that I literally had to read the whole thing with the handwritten changes, 3 pages. It was much worse for the people listening to me than it was for me. All right, first, we have an ordinance amending the Erlanger zoning ordinance, adding outdoor seating regulations for taverns and restaurants within the commercial and business park zones and amending the regulations for home occupations. The words to be deleted are lined through and the words to be added are underlined. You can see as we go through this that we've added quite a few areas for outdoor dining, as well as have kind of opened up the idea of home-based businesses in the 21st century. This is a second reading.
All right, do we entertain a motion that we adopt as presented? Mrs. Kyle, Mrs. Sedkamp. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Yeah, roll call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. Gary.
Ms. Pitts?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Reckers?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hermes?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore? Ms. Sudkamp?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore? Ms. Kyle?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Burke?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nicely? Ms. Cahill?
All right.
Next, we have a, just want to make sure I'm reading them in the order that they're on the agenda. All right. Next, we have a municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the appointment of Andrew, is it Lutz? Lutz. Andrew Lutz, to the Local Appeals Board for the City of Erlanger for the enforcement of the Kentucky Building Code. This appointment would begin January 1st, 2020 and end December 31st, 2023.
Okay, do I entertain a motion that we adopt this municipal order as presented? Mr. Hermes? Mrs. Sudkamp? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Congratulations. Thank you. And we're going to affirm you in just a little bit, okay? I'll call you up. Thank you.
Next, we have a municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the appointment of Irene Mischie and Mike Stubblefield as members of the Code Enforcement Board for the City of Erlanger effective January 1, 2020. As you can see, Irene's term would run January 1, 2020 through December 31, 2022, as well as Mike Stubblefield's term.
Do I entertain a motion that we adopt this municipal order as read? Mr. Meyer, Mrs. Reckers? All of it, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, next we have a municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the appointment of Mayor Jessica Fetty as the representative of the city to the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana OKI Regional Council of Governments effective January 1, 2020, This is a one-year term beginning on January 2020 and continuing until December 31st, 2020.
Okay, do I entertain a motion that we adopt this municipal order as read? Okay, Mr. Meyer? Mr. Hermes? Any discussion? All in favor?
I just want to say Tom Cahill has done an amazing job with OKI. He has developed rapport. He's got Stevenson Road noted and on the board and moved it up, and I want to thank him for all he's done. I'm not happy that he's being removed because of how far he's come, but he is a team player, and he is very graceful in this, so I just wanted to make that statement.
And I do want to also thank Tom for his service for 10 years on the board. I appreciate, and I look forward to the opportunity to follow in your footsteps. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Nay? All right, roll call.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pitts,
No, ma'am.
Ms. Cahill, Mr. Nicely, Mr. Burke,
No, ma'am.
Ms. Kyle,
No, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore,
No, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sudkamp,
No, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore, Mr. Hermes,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Reckers.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, motion failed. So I want to take a moment to explain my decision. So we've had a lot of conversations about Stevenson Road, about Houston, about Kenton Lands, about Commonwealth, and I understand that over the last 10 years, Tom has served on the board, and I appreciate his service. However, I would like the opportunity to lead my city with this organization. And I would like to be able to lead it with Matt Kramer and Peter Glenn sitting by my side at every single OKI board meeting as a united force, making sure that Erlanger is at the forefront of their minds at all times. For far too long, Stevenson Road has been completely ignored. Houston North is being ignored. Kenton Lands was not even on their radar. These are things that have to be constantly, we have to be constantly the squeaky wheel. We have to constantly be there pounding our fists on the table, fighting for our city, fighting for our roads, for our infrastructure, for our businesses, for our citizens. I want the opportunity to be that voice. I apologize if that upsets some people. And I don't know where we go from here.
Mayor Fetty, I know we already asked for other new business. I'm going to ask that we add another potential item to the next committee meeting so we can talk other potential appointments. I don't think we'll, unless we're going to reconsider and draft another municipal order, we're not going to do anything tonight, which puts us at either a special meeting or a January meeting before we could reappoint anybody else. So.
I've got something else, too, I'd like to say. You know, I think Mayor Fetty has shown time and time again that she is a fantastic representative for the city, and she's never done anything that would make anybody decide anything other than that or say anything other than that. She's always been a phenomenal representative. And to me, I can't even begin to understand why a majority of this council would not be on board with that, with her decision. I think it's ridiculous.
Mr. Hermes, I'm just going to ask that we delay any additional conversation. We've already voted on this. There's nothing additional for us to do tonight. We had the opportunity during discussion to weigh pros and cons. I'd like us to just kind of move on before we
Well, you know,
head down a path that.
you're right. And, you know, council members had an opportunity to discuss that. If they had a problem, they could have discussed that before the vote. And Mrs. Pitts is the only one that said anything. You know, when she said discussion. So I think it is appropriate that we talk about this, because I'd really like to understand.
No, I'm not disagreeing that we
I
should
would
talk
like-
about it. I'm just agreeing that I don't think we should be
I
talking
would
about it
like
right
somebody-
now because we've already had the opportunity to have
I
discussion.
think it's important that we hear this.
I agree. And that's why I asked for us to add it to the committee meeting in 2 weeks, and we can talk about her reappointment or a potential replacement appointment, should she decide to make that.
All right. We'll just move it to a special, we'll have to have a special council meeting for December 17th.
Okay.
So we'll talk about it, and I guess we'll have a couple of different municipal orders written up. I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll figure it out. All right.
I didn't get to read this till last night, so I almost think it's better if you bring it up at a committee meeting so we kind of aren't shocked by it. You know what I mean? There was not much time to absorb this. So a committee meeting discussing this probably would have been a better idea, and then have the vote tonight. And I'm sorry, Tom, I know it's just how I felt, and I know you gracefully are saying yes, and I apologize.
Okay, let's move on. The PDS representative appointments, municipal order.
All right, we have a municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the appointment of Councilmember Gary Meyer as a representative of the city to the Northern Kentucky Planning Development Services, PDS, and the appointment of Councilmember Rebecca Reckers as the alternate effective January 1, 2020. This also is for a one-year term.
Okay, do I entertain a motion that we adopt this municipal order as read? Mr. Hermes. Mr. Nicely. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right. So we're now at the point where we're going to do announcements. And what I'd like to do first, excuse me, Mr. Lutz, if you'd like to come to the front, we're going to affirm. Okay, are there any other announcements for this evening? All right,
There's a, did we talk about the tree lighting ceremony?
go ahead.
We've got a tree lighting ceremony this Friday from 5 to 6, correct? 5 to 8? Okay. 6 to 8. Okay, thank you. Don't put me in charge of the announcements.
Well, it's the holiday train display too.
And then we have Cocoa with a Cop on Saturday morning from 10 to 12, right here. And then we have the Gentlemen of Swing are going to be performing here with us on Sunday from 1 to 3. And every single day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're going to have the train display set up in the small council chambers. So it's going to be pretty awesome. Whole holiday festivities. The road out here is going to be closed down on Friday, and Renee has spoken with your pastor about allowing us to park in the lot, and then we can also use the Lloyd parking lot as overflow. So there should be plenty of parking spaces. Santa's going to be set up inside just in case there's really cold, yucky weather like there was last year. And then there are going to be some fire pits set outside, and the choir's going to sing on the steps. Should be a very nice evening. So, all right, Ms. Kyle.
I just want to compliment whoever did all the decorations, Christmas decorations outside. It really catches the eye. It's gorgeous, and I know Public Works puts it up. I don't know who designed it, but I really, really like it. It's beautiful.
Kevin Quinn did that. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate it.
Mr. Nicely?
Does anyone or the city know anything about Kroger's? Is Kroger's moving to the old Kmart or not?
We do not know. They still have a couple years on their lease in that spot right there in the Silver Lake Plaza.
I think it's empty now.
Well, the Kmart is closed. However, they still have multiple years left on their lease at the Silver Lake Plaza. And I just spoke with the owner of the Silver Lake Plaza, and he has not even gotten information from Kroger of whether they're staying or leaving. So really, it's not decided at this point. And we're doing everything in our power to keep them there, and so is he. All right. Any other announcements?
I was going to ask to move that we adjourn.
I second that.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Have a good evening.